Hey guys, it's Jesus McDonald here. Real quick, and before we get started on anything, if you haven't subscribed to the show yet, please take a few seconds to subscribe because I don't want you missing out on any valuable content around entrepreneurship and around marketing. Also, please leave us a 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts. We definitely need your help to reach a wider audience. So please spread this like butter as well, okay? Now, I'd like to introduce you to my guest, Brian Harman. Brian, welcome to the show.
Yeah, baby. Woo! I love to be here. Thank you for having me. It's my total privilege and honor. Thank you.
Same here. It's my pleasure. Now, I want to start by giving our listeners and viewers a short bio of who you are to give them more context, and then we'll dive right into the questions. Sounds like a plan?
All good. Let's do it.
Now, for those that don't know Brian, Dr. Brian Harman is an energetic executive coach and leadership professor based out of Los Angeles, California. As a facilitator of executive retreats and corporate training, his focus is on building transformational levels of trust within organizations. His articles and books have been featured by Forbes, Amazon, and in peer-reviewed academic journals. He studied at Pepperdine and Oxford, completing his MBA and then a PhD in global leadership and change. When he is not teaching, he is with his team at Business Management Hallmark. Brian, thank you for your time. Thank you for joining the show. I'm really excited to have you on.
Thank you for giving me the chance to share a message about trust. I think for people who care about people and people who care about leadership and development for themselves, they'll enjoy the show.
Absolutely. Now, let's dive right into the questions. What inspired you to choose a career in executive coaching and leadership development?
This is a cool question because it brings me back to some old feelings, some nostalgic feelings, some history of the beginning of me. And I knew from a young age that I wanted to be a business person. I didn't know exactly what that meant as a child, but I saw that some people in my family were entrepreneurs. Some people were in the field of medical, like medicine, so doctors. My grandfather, he had a unique career. He was not just a professor, but he had a private practice. He wrote books, and it's kind of wild. I have a little bit of a mirror reflection of what he does. Although he was in a field of back then it was called hypnotherapy, but it was really just meditative talk therapy. It wasn't really like hypnotism the way that we think of that with the the medallions floating around in front of your face and stuff like that. I think he was just moving into this stage of mindfulness and leadership. He worked with many people, both leaders and those who had special education needs. So I think that for me, when I had him as a role model, it was kind of cool that I saw people he was working with make big changes in their life.
Right.
And I don't know if how that really related to my career now, but I did see that at a young age, and I thought that was really, really cool. When I was also going to ask my wife to marry me, I didn't know how to provide a future for her. So I went back to school, and that at an older age, in my late 20s, when I decided to do that, I fell in love with education. Excuse me. So I finished the undergrad. I go on to my grad school. I go on to post-grad work to do my PhD. And as I'm going through this process, several moments of clarity helped me to figure out what I wanted to do. The biggest thing was about impact. I wanted to make an impact. I wanted to make sure that any of the work that I did had consequence in people's lives in a really positive way. So I wanted to make sure that I found a career where it wasn't just me doing work as an individual contributor. It wasn't even just me in a single company. I wanted to work with multiple companies doing things where the work that I did could be filtered out through all of the people in that company.
Interesting.
By having that level of influence, I could make a lot bigger impact than anything I did on my own. So I started actually doing coaching just as sort of like a side project. I didn't really outreach for my first client. Someone came to me and said, "Hey, I saw you speak at the conference." This was after the conference. I really liked what you stand for, leading with love, leading with trust, and I want to learn more about this. Can you help me to understand that?
That's
I was
awesome.
still early on in the process, so I didn't actually have a coaching program yet. I didn't know what that would even look like. But this was my open door to say, okay, let me figure this out. So I gave them a pretty decent price. It was like almost an experiment.
Right.
We get into it. This CEO founder ends up saying, that was the most valuable 4 weeks I've had in my development in years. I needed to train all my executives. Boom, executive coaching business is open for business. And now it's time to develop and evolve this thing into something real. I did that, continued to build it, evolve it, grow it, get a little bit creative with how I developed my program, different from the other coaches out there. I wanted to differentiate myself as someone that could really transform these people's lives and their leadership and their ability to influence, their ability to coach, delegate, collaborate, build teams that really loved the company like a family, not just going to work, showing up, doing the bare minimum.
Right.
So how did I choose this career? It was about, I knew from an early age I wanted to be a business person. I saw the people around me having an impact on people's lives. And then I was given this open door that said, go for it. And I went for it all in.
I think it's powerful when at a young age, when you're influenced by someone that's changing lives right in front of you, and they're living an inspiring life, and that also inspires you to change other people's lives. That's pretty awesome. That's deep too.
Yep, that's my grandfather, Poppy. I called him Poppy. He died before I was even 10 years old, but that left a lasting impact on me that I'll never forget.
Nice. Now, at what point in their career should someone start thinking about executive coaching and leadership development?
This is such a cool question. I'm glad you asked this. Anytime you plateau, it's time for a coach. It's time for a coach. If you have any sort of signal, indicator, red flag, any missed opportunity at work, anytime that you feel some self-doubt or self-defeating thought that says, I should have gone out for that promotion, or I should have gone out for that conference speech, or I should have done this. Anytime you hit that doubt or anytime you hit that plateau, it's time to get a coach. The reason that people get coaches is to get to their destinations faster. The word coach comes from horse-drawn carriage. It was like the first way that people actually got from point A to B in a quicker way. So that's why people are called coaches. For me personally, I've had many highly influential people in my life as coaches. The thing that I've come to realize is that there's a lot of great coaches out there.
Right.
It's not even a competitive thing. I'm not trying to say, hire me as your coach. Find a coach that's doing what you want to be doing better, and let them be the catalyst for you that ignites this new sense of goal setting and growth in your life. Once you can also take that approach where you're now listening and absorbing and growing from someone else's wisdom who's been through what you want to go through, it feels good. It's magical. And even the coaches that I've had that maybe I was a little bit on the fence about, once you get into the depth of what they can provide to you, it's amazing.
I was just thinking about, like, with leadership, executive coaching development, leadership development. I was thinking about, there's a lot of people, and maybe more for men. I don't really see this with women as much, where they think they know it. And yeah, they have the self-doubt, the insecurities, they have all that stuff that is just the fears that kills them internally, right? But they don't want to show their true colors. They don't want to ask for help because it's weak, right? Do you deal with people like that too? Or I'm sure you've encountered that too, right? Or maybe they don't reach out to you because they already know. In their mind, they think they know, right?
The best one is when an employee reaches out to me and says, "I need you to coach my boss," because they've taken it upon themselves to take the initiative and say, "Hey, I have got to get, like, I care about this boss enough to try to get them help." I think that's a pretty cool place to take it. Yeah, sometimes it's hard. Sometimes I walk into a room with a CEO and they're like, "Well, what the hell do you have to teach me?" Dude, actually, I've been responsible for a $250,000 portfolio with the stuff in my past. I have a pretty cool corporate background. I have a pretty cool academic background, and I've been coaching for a few years now, and it's going really well. And I just tell them, "Hey, if you don't think you can learn from me, let's have a talk about it. Let's not let that be the thing that stops you from growth." So I just kind of absorb that sort of, the pride, and letting them keep the face. And I don't beat them down for that. I just try to talk it out and see, hey, is there a solution here? Can I help you? And if not, that's cool. Let's just go our separate ways. It's all good.
Right. And do you identify that when you go into the room? Kind of like, oh, this guy, he's hitting me with a lot of pride, but he's probably really just fearful and insecure.
I actually haven't encountered this so much. It's been a handful of times. Usually when I get reached out to, it's because a CEO founder has noticed that trust has become an issue within their organization. I tend to work with smaller firms from the 50 to 350 headcount. So they're in rapid growth mode. They've got funding, they've got resources to expand. And they're just like, well, I don't want to expand if my resources are only being utilized in an effective way at like 80%. Why don't we crank that notch up to 100% and then start scaling up and expanding? So if they see some low performing teams, and also a lot of times it's an outsider, it's another consultant or advisor or board advisor of the company that says, there's a trust issue going on here. You should talk to Brian. He's the trust guy. Let him come in, talk to you. He can run some surveys and he can tell you if there's an issue or not. And if there is an issue, he can help you to fix it. And if not, cool. Then let's keep going. Let's charge this thing. Let's scale out.
I love that, because what I'm thinking about is more like a marriage, right? I'm like, you might think, yeah, our marriage is great. We're doing great. But then the kids are like, hey, dad needs help. Dad needs help. It's like somebody else that's more of like, we're not in the marriage, but I'm just saying it doesn't look pretty. And I think you need to get some support there. That's the way I was thinking about it when you were mentioning that.
Yeah. The trust issue, it starts with ourselves. If there is someone that has a problem with self-trust, that needs to be identified first. Then we go and scale that out from there into interpersonal trust, social trust, organizational trust, all of that. One thing that we know from research, and that the Edelman, it's called the Edelman Trust Barometer. I love this report. It comes out almost every year. It shows us, it's crystal clear. Trust has been taking a dump for 50 plus years on the institutional and global scale, on the political scale, on the governmental scale. All that really exists left for all of us is this, you and me, interpersonal trust. We don't even trust our politicians at the local level.
Right.
Some communities, that's not true. You have a great mayor, you have a great local councilman, councilwoman. That's awesome. But it's actually kind of rare now. Even if they are a trustworthy person, there's still this element out there that I'm going to be really skeptical about who is really doing what. I don't really trust companies, whether it's Walmart or Ford or Toyota or even Tesla. There's a lot of issues out there regarding trust, and we all see it.
Right.
It starts with us, though, and I think for me, when I tell myself, do I trust myself? Do I make and set promises and keep them? Do I tell other people about my goals and then reach them? And then they see that I'm a person that trusts myself, so now they can trust me. And now I can start making promises and keeping them to them. But until you've given people a clear picture that you trust yourself, why should I trust you? That's what goes through our head, not in those exact words, but in some way we have this subconscious that's constantly judging the things around us. And that's one of the mechanisms that I think is important. You have to show people that you can be trusted. One of the ways that you can do that is through openness. Trust is a reciprocal emotion. So the more you tell me, like we've had some cool interactions before this interview, and I was like, I really like Jesus, I really like your approach, your style, your message. It just felt good. So I want to reciprocate that to you. Some people, not so much, especially when there's a power differential, like a person of position, a man or woman up at the top of an organization. They have to really explicitly make a plan on how they intend to build trust. You can't just, especially on Zoom, it's even harder. You have to have a real plan around this. It's not just going to happen at the water cooler, maybe like it did in the old days.
Yeah, I never experienced that. But it's interesting because you mentioned honesty, right? And one, people are fearful of being honest because it might expose, their true colors, who they really are, what they really think, what they really want to do. But at the same time, I mean, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think self-awareness is important, because if you're not really aware and identifying what you're fearful or insecure about, or why you're having a hard time trusting yourself, like, if you can't trust yourself, you can't trust anyone. And it's important to identify those things, right? Before you're honest about anything.
Yeah, that's a really intuitive call out. Self-awareness. A lot of people say, "Yeah, I'm pretty self-aware." Nah, none of us are. None of us are. We are living in the shadows. We are faceless people for the most part. We don't spend time to sit there in reflection and meditate. I meditate almost every day, and even I don't consider myself self-aware.
Yeah,
There's all kinds of things.
I can relate.
Between our thoughts and behaviors, a lot happens in there. It's like a pinball machine of all this stuff. If we want to get from self-awareness to personal leadership, then we have to start changing the behavioral and cognitive cycle that happens completely unconsciously for how we set and achieve goals. Do we reward ourselves for goals? If we do, what kind of reward is most fulfilling? When we don't achieve a goal or don't set or write down our goals, how do we penalize ourselves? Do we turn that into a self-defeating thought, or do we do that in a healthy way that's constructive for ourselves to build these blocks and foundations for a better life? Self-awareness, it's so underrated. The word self-awareness is so misused. And I think it's something that's wildly inspiring about people who you come across that they just clearly have done some work on themselves, and you see it. It's clear as day. We can't be fooled. It's like, ooh, that's a self-aware person. And we latch onto those people. They have the clarity, they have the purpose, they know what they're doing, why, and how they're going to get there. And you see it so clearly. So
totally. No, that's great. Now, our listeners, mixture of marketing professionals, executives, entrepreneurs, and they're tuning into the show from time to time. My next question is, who is your ideal client, and how can they get in contact with you? Because they're always looking for opportunities to grow and learn. And they've mentioned to me, sending me a LinkedIn message, that they just love how much nuggets they're getting from this podcast show.
I would tell people, if you want more out of life, such as happiness or money or passion or love, coaches are a great way to go. If you think that I'm a person that can help you with that, there's a few ways to reach me. The biggest and easiest and most direct line to the bat phone is on LinkedIn. Shoot me a DM. I look at those every day. We've got a team that's really on the ball when it comes to LinkedIn. We have a few programs. So first and foremost, I'm an executive coach. I work with CEO founders and senior executives to help them get their leadership to a place of maximum influence. It's not just about work, though. This is a personal and professional, highly deep, highly, I want to say, intimate relationship that's formed. Because we'll talk about the personal story, the vision statement, the goals. How do we get there? How do I live a values-centered life? The other couple things that we do is I do help people to become thought leaders on LinkedIn. This is a program that I work with a partner on, and we help people not only to get the confidence in speaking and creating video, but also around how to turning that into a monetized company where you're actually earning income. How do you do the outreach? How do you do the sales? How do you build that thing up? It cost me around 70 grand in coaching to learn what I learned to get that engine running. And now it's a process that's pretty beautiful. And I want to help people with that. I think everyone has just a story that's pretty cool. And everyone has a gift they can give to the world because no one has the same life. So that's something I would say is good for someone who wants to build a business, start a coaching program or anything like that. And then lastly, I do a lot of career coaching. So we have a sophisticated team that's good with executive resumes, helping people polish up their LinkedIn, their personal brand, get that in order from interview prep to negotiation prep, all the way through. It's a full, pretty comprehensive career program. So those are really the three sets of clients that I have. And again, the best way to reach me is with a direct message on LinkedIn.
Nice. That was very specific. Thanks, Brian. And then lastly, do you have any advice for our listeners and viewers?
Write down your goals. You got to write them down. Not even just like on the computer. I really physically mean with a pen and paper, write down your goals. You're almost 100% more likely to achieve what you want in life with handwritten goals. There's a lot of people say I have dreams. Nah, dreams are bullshit. I want written goals because that shit's going to happen. Dreams, hope, faith. And I don't mean this in a way to downgrade religion or anything like that. I'm just saying like there's one way to take action and then there's another way to sit and wait and just want to be something different. Write down your goals. If I have to give anyone any advice at any stage in their life, from my son who's 4 years old to the person who's at retirement, is write down your goals.
I love that. That's valuable information. Well, Brian, you're awesome. Thank you again for your time.
My pleasure. Thank you so much for having me, and I look forward to talking with you again soon.
Totally. You make it a great day, all right?
Will do.